All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today is Thursday, August 4th, 2022, and you are now watching Permission to Exist. I am your host, Permission to Exist, also known as PTE, and it is so good to be with you guys this evening. Please let me know if you can hear me okay, and we're going to go ahead and get started with the show. First, I want to send a huge thank you to everyone who supports the channel in any way, be that Patreon, CashApp, Super Chatting, or liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing the videos. It all helps a lot, and your support is greatly appreciated. So welcome to everyone in the chat. Good to have you. Why don't we go ahead and get started? So this is a topic that I teased loud and clear. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. This is a topic that I teased on the community tab a couple of weeks ago. I had a list of topics that I wanted to see what you guys might be interested in. And this is the one that I called Narc nurses. So it's going to be a little bit more specific. It's not about all nurses in general, but tonight we are specifically going to talk about labor and delivery nurses. And I have a very, very kind of scary example for you guys to share with you. We're going to talk through that a little bit and then we'll get out of here. So welcome to everyone in the chat. So good to have you. Good to see you. There is a poll up on the chat right now. What was your labor and delivery like? 50% of you had a smooth and easy delivery. That's awesome. 33% had a few complications, but successful nonetheless. And 17% of you experienced a total nightmare regarding your labor and delivery. So I am very sorry to hear that. For those of you who had the nightmare experience, I will leave that poll up just a little bit longer to kind of see where we end up, and we'll take it from there. So before I get started, I want to make sure that I express that this is not directed at all labor and delivery nurses or all nurses in general. I know a lot of you work very, very hard. I know a lot of you are burnt out right now, especially after, well, some would say during the pandemic, as it is ongoing. So I know a lot of you have worked very, very hard, especially over these past couple of years. I know a lot of you have left the industry because of the different things that you've gone through in your career as a nurse. So this is not a condemnation of all nurses or the medical profession in general. However, I do think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and I don't think it does anyone any favors to try to cover it up with toxic positivity, which we'll be discussing later. Not in this stream, but later on the channel in coming up shows. I don't think it does anyone any favors to candy coat what's happening in these delivery rooms. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we bring awareness to it, that we might save some lives, both of mothers and infants alike. Okay. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. This is an article that I came across a couple of weeks ago. It was published July 11th, 2022. And it's titled, "Mom Begs Nurse to Check Cervix During Labor, Then Makes a Shocking Discovery Under the Bed Sheet. Listen to your body, ladies." Okay. This is not all that graphic, but some of you might consider it graphic. I really don't think it is. But if you're squeamish about this kind of stuff, it's not bad, I promise. But it might be disturbing to you. You might find it kind of disturbing. So there's your warning, fair warning, okay? So let's take a look at this article. It says, a mom's shocking delivery story is going viral and inspiring women everywhere to self-advocate during labor. Jess gained millions of views and likes when she stitched a response to the prompt, "What's the craziest thing that happened in your labor?" Jess's harrowing birth story is shocking parents around the world. So this is Jess. And I don't know. I don't think I can play TikTok videos. Maybe I can. So let me read the article first, then I'll play this TikTok video. But I don't know that copyright applies for TikTok, but I am not sure. It says, "I dilated really quickly with my first kid," Jess explains in the now viral video. "So for my second kid, I told the nurse, 'Hey, I dilate really fast. Can you keep a check on my cervix? Because I don't want to have a baby in the bed when nothing is prepared. After giving her nurse this warning, Jess settled in and was given her epidural when suddenly she began to feel a lot of pressure. So Jess asked her nurse to check her, only to be nonchalantly told she was only at 7, not centimeters, right? She was dilated at 7. You have to go to 10. I just can't remember if it's centimeters. So someone in the nursing industry, let me know in the chat. Is it 7 centimeters? It can't be centimeters. It has to be inches, right? Anyway, the goal is to get to 10 before the baby comes out. As Jess tried to rest and get sleep, the pressure only continued to mount. Finally, after it became too much, Jess asked her husband to get the nurse, who had not been responding to the call button. But before he left, Jess jokingly asked her husband, "Can you check under the sheet? I just want to make sure there's not a baby laying there." Guess what he found when he checked? My son, all 7.5 pounds of him. Listen to your body, ladies. It knows what it's doing. If only we could convince medical professionals that we know our own body. It's centimeters? Oh, dear Lord. I guess 10 inches or 7 inches would be really, really wide. So it is centimeters. Wow. Okay. Thousands of TikTokers were shocked by Jess's story, but sadly, some found her experience all too relatable. My nurses told me to calm down. I was only at 6. I said, no, I need to push. One push later, and she barely caught him, one user commented. I feel so unheard every time I'm in labor. With my last baby, they tried to send me home twice, but my water broke at check-in, and he was born 1 hour later, another parent shared. You'd think after all the women, these RNs would realize not one woman is the same. Listen to the one having the baby, commented one parent. L&D RN here. I caught a baby with no gloves because she went from 8 to crowning in 1 contraction. It happens fast for some. I listen to my patients, one nurse replied. If only we could convince medical professionals that we know our own body, another user commented. This is why I'm going into medicine. I'm tired of people being ignored and left to deal with their own pain and medical issues, wrote another user. Hopefully, stories like Jess's will one day be a thing of the past as more doctors and nurses take heed of their patients' warnings and gut feelings. All right? So that is the entire article, just really brief. And I'm going to see if we can play this. We're just going to risk it all. Fair use. I'm going to play this video because I think this is the actual video that went viral. So let's take a look. And it is centimeters as confirmed by the chat. So let's take a look.
What was the craziest thing that happened in your life?
Okay, so I dilated really quickly with my first kid. So for my second kid, I told the nurse, hey, I dilate really fast. Can you keep a check on my cervix because I don't want to have the baby in the bed and nothing's prepared. So I get in, get settled, get my epidural, and I start to feel a lot of pressure. I ask her to check me. She's like, oh, you're only at 7. Tried to rest and get some more sleep, but the pressure was too much. Finally, I asked my husband to go get the nurse because she wasn't responding to the call button. And jokingly, I was like, hey, can you check under the sheet? Because, I just want to make sure there's not a baby laying there. Guess what he found when he checked? My son, all 7.5 pounds of him. Just, chilling. Listen to your body, ladies. It knows what it's doing.
Okay, so that's the video. If I end up having to cut that out, I will just edit it out for the sake of copyright, but it will take the live chat with it, as is what happened with the last live chat, and I'm so mad. I was trying to play a little song, and it just got all tangled up in copyright, and I muted it. So to any content creators out there, if you mute a song in your live stream, it will erase the live chat. YouTube, please fix that. Please. That is so annoying. So anyway, that is the story, and that is what prompted this live stream. A mother was in labor went to the hospital. The nurse checked her. She was 7 centimeters. And she told the nurse, I dilate really fast, so can you kind of keep a check on me and keep a check on my cervix to make sure, I don't have the baby in the bed. And the nurse, what did they say, nonchalantly kind of waved her off? No. The nurse nonchalantly told her she was only at 7. So they were hitting the call button trying to get a hold of the nurse, and the nurse was ignoring the call button. So she sent her husband to go get the nurse, but she said to him before he left, can you just check and make sure there's no baby under the sheet? And sure enough, when he checked, there was her son right there in the bed. Some of you may be wondering, how did she not feel the baby come out? She had an epidural, so she was basically numb from the waist down. But from what I understand, you can still feel pressure. Even with the epidural, you just can't feel pain. For anyone who doesn't know, I've never had a baby, never been pregnant as far as I know. So I've never been through this. So this is all what I've heard or what I've been told. Okay. But even with the epidural, you still feel a lot of pressure. So that's probably why she didn't know the baby was right there in the bed. And based on her delivery of the story, and she seemed really happy, I'm sure her son is healthy and happy today. Mom is healthy and happy. So it had a positive outcome. But I was really, really disturbed by this story for so many different reasons. And one of the main reasons is because I just know that women tend to get ignored a lot in the medical field. For whatever reason, women are not taken seriously when it comes to medicine, symptoms, things of that nature. All too often, women are told that they are just being hysterical, they're being emotional, they need to calm down, they need to relax. All kinds of different things that they're told when they're presenting with different symptoms. And I can't go into it here, but those of you who were with me on my other channel, A Deeper PTE, before I got in trouble over there, we actually reviewed quite a few different articles that discussed how when different medical products are being developed, women often aren't even considered as part of the research. Or to take it a step further, certain conditions that primarily affect women aren't taken into account and aren't taken into the overall data set when developing new medicines and new treatments and things of that nature. It's like an afterthought. And as a matter of fact, one article we read said that for the longest time, the medical community considered women tiny men. So if you think a woman is a tiny man, you're going to treat her like a tiny man. And you don't think that the unique circumstances that affect the female sex are important at all because, she's just a tiny man. So we don't need to look into those different things because what's the difference? Lots of difference. Lots and lots and lots of difference. Chat says this is 100% true. You won't feel pain because of the epidural, but the pressure is no joke. That's what I heard. That is absolutely what I've heard. Okay. And I've actually sat in on 3 different deliveries, which is it's funny to me that I've witnessed 3 different babies being born. But one in particular, I'll never forget. It was the sister of a friend of mine. So we had just gone there for moral support. And she was in the bed and her sister, who was my friend. So it was my friend and her sister. So my friend, her sister, kept telling her, stop pushing. But she was not listening to her. And she was just sitting in that bed, just pushing away. And shortly after the baby was born, and I was young at the time, you guys, I was probably like 19 or 20 years old when this was happening. And I remember thinking, how are you going to tell that woman to stop pushing? Like, she knows, like, she can feel everything that's happening in this moment. And her body is telling her to push. And her sister, my friend, was like, stop pushing, And because the nurses had told her to stop pushing. But she didn't. She just kept doing. I think you can't help it. From what I understand, once you get that urge to push, you cannot help but push. Like you don't have a choice, really. So she was just kind of going with the natural flow of her body, and her son was born shortly after. But it stuck with me. It really, really did. I'm like, how are you going to tell somebody who's in the middle of labor, who feels this urge to push, to stop pushing? It was kind of incredible. So anyway, I say all that to say that this really, really bothered me. And it actually also really, really scared me because, number one, it's showing that this callous, narcissistic attitude has infected absolutely every area of our lives, including the medical community. When I ran a survey many years ago, one of the top professions, I said, what profession is your narcissist in? Right up there at the top was nurses. I don't remember who the number one was, but nurses was like number 2 or number 3. And I was stunned by it. I was floored by it. The fact that nurses made it so high on this list, this survey that I had run for the channel, nurses ranked very high on the list. And we got into a very deep discussion about why that is. And a lot of viewers shared with me how so many nurses are narcissistic, but in particular, like head nurses. So if you make it to like a head nurse, I guess there's a hierarchy. And there's like a head nurse who's like in charge of all the other nurses. They were saying that those head nurses tend to be the most narcissistic of all. And not only do they treat their patients poorly, but they also treat the nursing staff poorly, which is part of what leads to such high turnover in that particular profession, which is also why they've made the Narcs in high places list this evening. I consider a high place anywhere that someone has control over your life or the outcome of your life. So the first 2 shows that we did were Narcs in high places, 911 dispatchers. Happy to report that the dispatcher from that show got fired. I hate that anyone has to lose their job, but if anyone deserved to be fired, it was her, okay? For telling that woman to whisper. No, what did she say? She asked the lady who had called in about somebody who was committing an act of violence in a very public way to stop whispering. He can't hear you. And I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm laughing at just the irony and just the ridiculousness of telling someone who's panicking because someone is in their store committing a horrific act of violence to stop whispering, he can't hear you. Then she hung up on her, if I recall correctly. So that person got fired, which I consider to be positive. And another dispatcher just got brought up on charges, I think, for their response to a 911 call. But I would have to look up that case. But I'm pretty sure that dispatcher got charged with like manslaughter or something like that for their callous indifference and the way they handled that call. But let me look that up. Don't quote me on that. So that was the first one, 911 dispatchers. Then the second installment we did of Narcs in high places was chefs. And which also made that list on that survey that I did. And so we talked about this one narcissistic chef, or at least I considered his approach to be narcissistic. We talked about him. You can find both of those videos on the channel. So anyway, this would be our third installment, Narcs in high places, nurses, because all 3 of those affect people's lives. Dispatchers can affect your life or the outcome of your life. Chefs can affect your life or the outcome because they're making your food that's going to go into your body. And nurses, obviously, if you found yourself in the care of a nurse, something has happened in your life to where you need help in that way. And they absolutely 100% can affect the outcome of your life based on what they choose to do or choose not to do. So here we are. It made me very, very scared as a woman to even think about having a baby. I saw a comment go by earlier that said something to the effect of, this is why I believe in home births, something like that. Like, I think about that all the time. My window for baby making is closing. I think I got like a good 10 years left. It says, this is why I advocate for home births. That's what the chat says. I think I got like a good 10 years left, but I wouldn't I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't bet money on it. But, it could happen. Stranger things have happened. But it makes me very, very worried, and it makes me very, very fearful, primarily because my concern with the way things are going in our society is that I wouldn't be heard, or it would be my first baby, or however many, who knows, and me telling them, hey, this really hurts or that really hurts, and them being like, yeah, you're in labor, you're getting ready to have a baby, everything hurts. And I'm like, nah, this hurts kind of different. Like, can you check? Can you look and see? And to be dismissed, I think is the word I'm looking for. I have a lot of concerns about being dismissed should I ever find myself pregnant and enter into the medical system in an effort to have that baby. It's scary, you guys. It's frightening because it doesn't always go well. It goes well quite often, but it doesn't always go well. And when it's not going well, would I be in the care of people who would have enough compassion, concern, and empathy for me to hear my concerns and take them seriously? And that's worrisome. I'm worried about that. Chat says, check out Ricky Lake's The Business of Birthing Babies. It will shock you in a way that you will realize how limited your voice is. That's scary. That is so frightening to me. Something so important as giving birth could be disregarded and dismissed so callously by the medical industry, who's supposed to be the experts in this particular area. But, chat says, I find nurses to be very judgmental. Ooh, expound on that. Tell us more. That's scary, you guys. I'm scared by that. I was reading some blog the other day, and the author said that if they got sick or hurt, that basically they're just going to take the L and just basically like let it happen. Like they're just going to die because they would rather just die at home than go to a hospital and be in the care of the current medical industry and the current climate of the medical industry. They would rather just die at home. They said, if it's my time, it's my time. And I'm not recommending that, you guys. I recommend seek out help if you need it. Do what's best for you, okay? But this person so distrusts the medical, there's a term for it. Not medical facility, not medical industry. There's another term. It might come to me later, but they so distrust, I'll just say industry, the industry, that they would rather just die at home than put themselves in the care, custody, and control of medical complex. That's the word I was looking for, of the current medical complex. Chat says, PTE, have you done one for teachers? I've had some awful teachers. No, but what a great prompt. Thank you. They'll make the list, and I'll be sure to cover that in the future. Chat says, I'm not going to no one's hospital. Many years ago, this is long before I launched the channel, and I was actually young. I've had a lot of insight for a long time. I used to tell people this when I was like 18 or 19 years old. I used to say to friends, family, or anyone who would listen, try to stay healthy because you don't want to have to end up in the hospital or end up with some type of treatment in the future medical community. Because I could see at the time where it was going, you guys. I could see the direction it was headed in. And this is long before everything that's happened over these past 2 years. I never could have predicted something like that. But what I basically saw at the time were the competency levels dropping and the requirements for a certain level of performance dropping. And I saw people who I went to school with, and I was like, you're a nurse now? Oh dear, sweet Lord. Oh God. Let me take my vitamins. Let me try to walk a mile a day. Let me drink some water. Let me try to stay hydrated. Thank you. That's what it is. The medical industrial complex. That's the exact term that I was looking for. Thank you. Chat says you should read Medical Apartheid. That book will rock your world. I'm scared. I think it might ruin me if I read that book. I think I might be ruined. So it kind of makes me understand why this author said, look, if it's my time, it's my time. Hey, if I fall off a ladder and break my back, I'm just going to go lay in bed and just let it have its way. You know what I mean? Just lean into it. You know what I'm saying? And who could blame them when you have stories like this coming out saying that essentially this woman told the nurse, I dilate very quickly, so keep watch on me. And the nurse is like, girl, whatever. Yeah. You're only at 7. She's ringing the nurse call button. The nurse is not coming. And before her husband goes to go get the nurse, he looks under the sheet and his son is right there. I mean, at that rate, you might as well have the baby at home. You might as well. So that's very, very frightening. And it's also very sad to me, because what about the people who don't have someone there with them? Husband, partner, friend, sister. One of the births that I attended was a friend of mine, and I was the only one there with her when she had that baby. Now, her family showed up later after the baby was born, but I was literally right there. And I think I cut his cord too, if I'm not mistaken. I think I cut his cord, but I don't remember, you guys. But I was the only one there with her during that whole process. And another friend of mine, I attended her birth, but her husband was there. But so I was the photographer. So I've seen 2 babies come out. No, 3. And every time I'm like, wow, there was a baby in there. There was a whole baby in there. How cool. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. I don't think I want to go through that. That looks really painful. Like incredibly, remarkably painful. I can't believe the human body is capable of it. It's incredible. It is one of the most bizarre things you'll ever witness. And actually, when I first started college for undergrad, I thought I wanted to be a labor and delivery nurse. What changed my mind was when I found out the insurance requirements that you have to carry to be really any doctor, but in particular a labor and delivery doctor, because so many different things can go wrong during that process that you have to carry like an incredible amount of insurance to kind of cover yourself if a mistake is made. And I was like, you know what? I don't think that's for me. Because not only would I be upset, about the insurance I would have to carry, I would be upset if any baby or mother was harmed during the process of giving birth and on my watch. Like, I don't think I'd ever be able to get over it. So I chose a different career path. Looking back, I probably should have stuck with it, but whatever. We make our decisions in life, right? Chat says you forget the pain. She must have, because she went on to have 3 more kids after that. So she must have forgotten the pain. But this also brings up a very, very important conversation, in particular here in America. So let's take a look. Now, I had heard about this earlier this year, so I went and saw if I could dig up an article for it, and I was able to do that. This came out April 5th of this year, 2022. And it says, a study of wealthy nations finds American women are the most likely to die of preventable causes and pregnancy complications. American women, the so-called richest nation on earth, the so-called greatest place on earth, the so-called best country in the world, number one first world country, number one first world nation, is experiencing the highest likelihood of death by preventable causes and other pregnancy complications. So let's talk about that in the context of what we know so far about Narc nurses. So again, published April 5th, 2022, a new study found that women in the U.S. face the highest rates of preventable and maternal mortality when compared with women in 10 other wealthy nations. According to data collected by the Commonwealth Fund and published Tuesday, American women have an avoidable mortality rate of 198 per 100,000, the highest of any nation included in the study. The United Kingdom had the next highest rate at 146 per 100,000. The U.S. also had the highest maternal mortality rate at 23.8 deaths per 100,000 live births, more than triple the rate of any other country studied. When looking only at Black maternal mortality, the rate jumped to 55.3 deaths per 100,000 live births. By comparison, in Norway in 2019, the last year for which data was available, there were 0 maternal deaths. 0 in Norway in 2019. 0. A high rate of cesarean sections, inadequate prenatal care, and elevated rates of chronic illnesses like obesity, diabetes, and heart disease may be factors contributing to the high U.S. maternal mortality rate. And I'm going to do a sidebar and say I think what's also contributing to this are what we just talked about, narcissistic doctors and nurses who maybe aren't hearing these women when they're saying, hey, something is like really, really wrong. They're like, you're just in labor, you're fine. It's like, no, something is off. Like, I need help. Like, yeah, everyone on this floor needs help. Everyone's in labor. You're not special. You're not different. Just grin and bear it. You got your epidural, so lay back and just deal with it, right? So a callous indifference is also contributing to this. Back to the article. Many maternal deaths result from missed or delayed opportunities for treatment, the researchers wrote. Researchers with the Commonwealth Fund pulled data from the fund's 2020 International Health Policy Survey and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Statistics on healthcare were compared among Australia, Canada, France, Germany, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, the UK, and the US. Among the U.S. women ages 18 to 49, just over a quarter rated their country's healthcare system as good or very good. In every other country, a majority of women in this age group gave their healthcare system a positive rating. U.S. women were significantly more likely to report skipping or delaying medical care or to have trouble paying for care. Nearly half of women ages 18 to 49 reported having some cost-related issue in accessing health care, and more than half reported at least one problem with a medical bill. In France, the country with the next highest rate, only 38% of women had a problem with a bill, including difficulty paying, spending time on paperwork, or disputing a bill or having difficulties with insurance. The data also showed high rates of chronic conditions and mental health needs in American women compared with those in peer nations. The researchers recommended expanding access to affordable health care and increasing and diversifying the number of physicians in the U.S. as possible ways to address disparities in women's health care. All right? So just as a summary, out of 10 wealthy nations that got studied, American women were found the most likely to die of preventable causes and pregnancy complications, impacting Black women the most. And American women were most likely to have issues with the healthcare system itself, be that seeking care, receiving care, or simply being able to afford health care in order to take care of themselves during this very delicate time. So when people say America is the greatest country on earth, what I often say in response to that is America might be like the penthouse of hell, meaning, oh, it's hell, but we're like the penthouse of hell. And I don't even think we're on the penthouse anymore. I think we might be like on the 3rd floor of hell at this point. So why do people insist that this is the greatest nation on earth? Because every other nation that they're comparing to is, again, it would be the penthouse of hell, honey. Meaning the uppermost floor, the top floor of hell. But you're still in hell nonetheless. How can the wealthiest nation on earth be experiencing the highest maternal mortality rate? How? How is that even possible? And why do we continue to allow money to dictate who gets to live or die? For that reason, I would just never take this country seriously. I can't. I want to. Like, I would love to be able to take this country seriously, but I simply cannot when stuff like this is allowed to go on. And I hate to say this, you guys, but unless something dramatic changes, I think it's only going to get worse, because narcissism is getting worse and worse. And basically, it is self-sustaining at this point. So I really think it started to ramp up around the year 2000, and it has just gained steam ever since then. And now the whole entire country is basically held hostage by investors and stockholders and psychotic, narcissistic business leaders. And those are facts. Yeah, chat says consumerism and capitalism. Our country cannot survive like this, you guys. And I saw a comment go by earlier that said, and on top of all of this, you're now trying to force women to go through with every pregnancy that they find themselves with. So for any new viewers, I very much support a woman's right and access to an abortion. I've already gone into extensive detail about it. If you want to hear my thoughts, check out my other channel, A Deeper PTE. It's okay, mama, relax. Check out my other channel, A Deeper PTE, where I cover the topic 2 or 3 times at this point, if you want to know why I feel the way that I do. But this would be part of the reason why. So we don't even have a solid healthcare system in place to support pregnant women all the way from their pregnancy through labor and delivery, but you want to force them to have the baby anyway when it could kill them. And don't hit me with the rare conversation. Some of you know how I feel about the word rare. Rare does not mean never. So be it 23 out of 100,000 or 55 out of 100,000, just because it's infrequent doesn't mean it never happens. It happened, and we're only talking about 100,000. So when you do the math, I don't know how many pregnancies there are per year, but it adds up pretty quick. A couple hundred women are going to die in pregnancy and childbirth, but you want to force them to have every baby that they find themselves pregnant with. So, that's why, again, I just cannot take this country seriously, and the rest of the world is starting to not take you seriously either. And honestly, you guys, and this is kind of a different conversation altogether, but the third world countries that they're always comparing America to, in my opinion, became third world because we did not check this kind of stuff early. Not we, because they did not check this type of behavior early on when it was first starting. And all that happens is eventually the whole entire system collapses on itself. You have a bunch of psychotic, narcissistic leaders, and now you have yourself a third world country. That's how it happens. You let the psychopaths take over. You let them infect and infiltrate every system that's important to a healthy society. You let them get in there, and you let them get in there deep. And if nobody stops it, eventually, because again, narcissism eventually implodes on itself. It might take a long time, but it has no choice but to fail because it literally goes against life itself. Narcissists go against life itself. So everything they do leads to destruction eventually. So if you let a bunch of people who are destructively minded run your country, infiltrate your different systems, your programs, your healthcare, legal, medical, finance, banking, homes and housing, education. You let these people get in there, you don't check it, and as a matter of fact, you protect them. It only gets worse, and because they only know destruction, they bring destruction to any system that they're a part of. So I'll give you an example that's completely unrelated to this. But have you all heard about what's going on with, I think it's called Celsius is the name of the cryptocurrency. Let me see. Celsius bankruptcy. Let me see. I don't want to say the wrong. Yeah. bankrupt crypto lender Celsius. That's a different article. So basically, long story short, there was a cryptocurrency lender named Celsius, the Celsius network, and a bunch of people invested, sometimes only a couple $100s, but other people invested their life savings into this lender with the promises that they were so much better than a bank, their money was safer with the bank, and that there was no risk of bankruptcy. Well, Celsius went bankrupt and they froze everybody's accounts. So the people who say put in like $100,000 have no access to that money. And right now they are pleading with federal judges to get their money back before Celsius's creditors get their money. So on top of that, Celsius had, I think I read 300,000 creditors, meaning they reached out to 300,000 different creditors or lenders and received money from them to help fund this operation. And I just love that. Where the average person, if your credit score, which by the way, check your Equifax credit score, because they just released and came out with a news story saying that their algorithm was wrong and they misquoted people's credit scores by like 20 points in some circumstances. This just came out. So right now, lawyers are gearing up because there are people who got denied applications or charged higher interest rates based off of their Equifax credit score. And Equifax just came out and said, "Oh, sorry, we just realized our algorithm was wrong," for like 3 months straight. So anyway, I digress. I miss doing the news break because this is when we would talk about stuff like this. I digress. My point is, this entity, Celsius, could reach out to 300,000 different creditors and get credit, get lines of credit, get loans, get all of that, and then turn around and went bankrupt anyway. They've frozen all of their customers' accounts, so these people can't get their money. They have no access to their funds right now, and it has destroyed some people's lives. Very important. I might revive the news break in 2023 because I hate missing talking about this kind of stuff with you guys. But why did I bring that up in the first place? Now I got myself all distracted and worked up. Oh, I was saying how when narcissism infiltrates different industries, it brings them to collapse. So you see what I mean? You had a bunch of narc CEOs and higher management who were lying to these people saying that we have no risk of bankruptcy. We are not in danger of bankruptcy in any way. These people put all their money into this bank or whatever it is, crypto lender or whatever. They went bankrupt and basically stole their money. So now they're fighting to get their money back. I read one couple put in $138,000 and they have access to none of it. And it was essentially their life savings. Imploding, absolutely. Everything they create implodes, absolutely. So I say that to say, there's no way we can be the greatest nation on earth when we allow this to happen. And this is how third world countries are created. This is how it happens. Like, if you can't even keep your youngest citizens, which would be newborns, healthy and safe as they're entering into the world, then what hope is there for adults? We've been begging for healthcare, universal healthcare, for years, for decades now. And it's still scoffed and mocked and laughed at as if it's a joke. Well, you're going to joke your way all the way to a third world country. Employers are still having trouble finding employees to work their different jobs. And it's probably because some people are so unhealthy right now, don't have the healthcare coverage to get healthy, so they can't come work your job. Because for example, let's say you need some healthcare, right? Let's say you need a minor surgery. Nothing life-threatening yet, but if it continues to go on, it can become life-threatening. But you need health insurance to do that. So let's say you finally get a job where they offer health insurance, but you're going to need like 3 months off to take care of this little surgery situation. How many employers are offering that? Typically, in this narcissistic country, it looks bad if you take off that kind of time when you just start a job. So you got to wait. So you just started a job, and now you have to wait until you feel like it's an appropriate time for you to ask for time off to go take care of a healthcare need. You see what I mean? This country is doomed, you guys. I hate to tell you that. And I know some of you may not feel like this country is doomed because maybe you're doing well individually. You got a nice job. You got a nice place to live. You can comfortably afford it. You know, you have food on the table. Your kids might be good. Your husband or wife or whatever is good. You know, and you think you're okay. You look outside your front window. Your neighborhood looks nice. There's not a lot of riffraff around. It's clean. There's no litter on the street. You know what I'm saying? You're taking your little vacations, posting it on Instagram, seeing other people's vacations on Instagram. And you think everything is fine because the world around you is fine. But what I'm trying to tell you is when you don't care for your weakest link, it's not long before it reaches you, honey. It's not. You might just be a little bit further up on the chain, but it's working its way up to you. It is. So you don't care about the weakest link. You're like, well, that's their choice and they should have made better choices and they should get a job and they should have chosen better and they should have this and they should have that, right? But what you don't realize is a lot of what takes place in people's lives is circumstantial. What is the name of that boy's channel? I think the name of his channel is The Healthy Gamer, but don't quote me on that. It might be like The Healthy Gamer CC or something like that. He's a doctor he's a therapist who does videos on different social topics. And I think he's very, very good actually. And I hope I got his channel name right. But he was doing a show and I don't remember which one it was, but something he said really stuck with me. He was answering a viewer's question, and the viewer basically felt like their life was not where it should be at their particular age. And, you know, he was saying that our society teaches us that when we haven't reached a certain point in life, it's 100% our fault. And that anything that's going wrong in our life is our fault. And what he was saying in that video, and I'll try to find it for you guys, was, sure, some of the things that have gone wrong in your life are indeed your fault. Absolutely. But you cannot discredit other things that have contributed to your current state of affairs. So for example, because I think this person was only like 23, and they were saying how they have no friends, they have no social life, you know, and basically they just didn't feel like they were where they needed to be. And he was like, did your parents teach you how to make friends? Did your parents model how to make friends? Did your parents put you in situations where you could practice your social skills and work on your social skills? Did they? He said, when I was a little boy, my parents would take me with them to different networking events, you know, where kids could come or whatever, and introduce me to other adults. And other adults would speak to me and I would speak back. And that's how I learned to talk to strangers. He said, I would watch my dad go up to someone he didn't know yet and strike up a conversation. He said, they would introduce me to other kids. And the point that he was making was socialization, and this is just one example, socialization is not something that comes naturally to people. You have to be taught how to socialize. I'll see if I can find it. I'll see if I can find it. I'll look in my watch history and I'll see if I can find it. And if I can, I'll link it in the comments once the show is over, because it was really good, y'all. And it really got me to thinking. It really did, because our society teaches, again, anything wrong with you is your fault. Anything and everything wrong with you is your fault. You know, and so he even brought up school, I think, and he was like, if you're not doing well in school, okay, your study habits might not be that good. Did your parents teach you how to study? Did they sit with you in your assignments and show you how to read and take notes and highlight and make note cards? Or did they leave that all to your teachers? Did they put a focus or an emphasis on education? Did they care about your education at all? Did they ever ask about your assignments? So in other words, he's not saying it's 100% your parents' fault. But he was also saying at age 23, you've only been launched for what, 5 years? 18, 19, 20, 22. Yay! Look at that math. Boom, boom. That was quick math too. Boom, right off the cuff. At age 23, you've only been launched for 5 years. So how can you take full responsibility for your life when you technically only been an adult for 5 years? How? Like how? So, how did I get on that topic, y'all? How did I get there? I don't even know how I worked myself over here to this topic. Let me see if I can backtrack. I was talking about responsibility. I don't know. Oh, I was talking about circumstantial and weakest link. Thank you. And the chat says the weak link affects everything else. So, yep. Okay. That was all related to the same thought. So basically, those of you who think everything's okay because you have money in the bank, you have a good job, you have health care and health insurance, nice place to live, nice vehicle, friends, family. I worry for you the most because you're the one who is going to be the most blindsided for what's coming to you. You're going to be the most blindsided. Some might call it karma. If you don't believe in karma and things like that, surely you believe in cause and effect. And the ability to predict what's going to happen based on what's already happened. So if the bottom falls out, guess who the new bottom is? Whoever was right above the bottom. So the bottom falls out, the next in line sinks down to the bottom. They're the new bottom. Then that falls out, the next in line sinks down to the bottom. That bottom falls out, the next in line, until it finally reaches your doorstep. And in my opinion, it's already reaching the doorstep, in my personal opinion. And the reason I say that is because, sorry, this is not supposed to be playing. Crap. How do I turn it off? Boom, stop. There we go. I think it's already actually happening because, for example, we still have supply chain issues. We still have labor shortages, allegedly. Life has not returned to normal, largely. It really hasn't. So it's creeping its way up to the top. It's slowly working its way there. So you are not safe. You're safe for right now. You're temporarily safe. This is not. Hold on. Sorry. I'm all distracted. Let me just check something real quick. It's showing as unlisted on my side, but it can't be unlisted because all you guys are here. So it has to be a public video. Let me just make sure this is public. I'm pretty sure it is, but let me just make sure. All right. Oh, it is. Okay, perfect. It's just a delay. Anyway, it's headed your way is what I'm trying to tell you. It's literally coming your way. It's just a slow train. Look at it like a very slow train that's a couple of miles down the track. And you can see the train, but it's moving real slow and it's going to take a while to reach you, but it's coming. The only thing that you'll be able to do to stop it is to reverse all of this behavior, all these bad behaviors that we engage in. You'd have to rewrite and redo lots of different policies and procedures and things of that nature. You would have to get rid of a lot of people in high places in order to restore some sort of balance and order to the society. And with the way things are going, I just don't see that happening. I think people are very committed to their psychopathy. I think they've made too much money, too much illegitimate money. They've made way too much illegitimate money to ever give it up, ever. And they're just trying to find new and creative ways to make it last forever. But it won't. That's the good news. I know some of you are out here getting absolutely crushed, and I know some of you are out here crushing it. Wherever you stand, it's not going to last forever. It's not going to last forever. It's not. It's doomed to fail. This design that we currently have is doomed to failure. It is already failing. And whether or not you want to acknowledge that or accept that, it is, honey. It is. Because let's say worst case scenario, the upper class completely wipes out the lower class. Well, guess what? if you wipe out the lower class, now you just have a new lower class, which would mean like someone who makes $1 million a year will be considered lower class compared to someone who makes like 50 million a year. It's coming your way, honey. It absolutely is. And this is just a warning. I've told you how to fix it. I've told you what to do. In the past, I would have said, get out there and vote. But I so distrust both parties to ever pull us out of this tailspin that I don't really trust the politicians to do their job either and to fix it, because they're way too invested in the way things are right now. Literally and figuratively invested in the current state of affairs. So, all I can say every day is, Lord, when are you coming back to bring this to an end? Because like every time society got out of control in the Bible, at least, you destroyed it. So when is what I'm asking. Because at this point, only God can fix it. And I mean that. And that sounds so extreme, but it's true. Because the human beings that are here on earth right now are not motivated to fix it. They've benefited from it too much. They profited from it too much to ever change for what? Empathy reasons? Compassion reasons? They have no compassion. They have no empathy. They've been protected for too long. But, at the same time, so remember how I was saying earlier that it's slowly creeping its way up to them? So, for example, infrastructure is failing all over the world. They just had a heat wave come through the United Kingdom, and it literally melted runways. It buckled bridges in China. It was so hot that the bridges started buckling in China and places like that. So no matter how rich you are, sure, you can hop on your little private jet, but where are you going to land if the runway has melted? You see what I mean? Sure, you're rich, but if you got your baby formula from the same place as everyone else did, well, what you going to do when your baby is hungry? Rich and all, you can be as rich as you want to be. If there's no formula to purchase, what are you going to do? You see what I mean? So it's starting to creep upward, you guys. It is. All these different issues going on with the airplanes, from, brake failures to, there was an airplane that crash landed at Miami International Airport. It didn't crash land. Its landing gear went out. So it basically landed on its belly and then caught fire. Now, I don't think anyone passed away, which is great that everyone survived. But come on. You see what I'm saying? So this approach has finally caught up to us, you guys. It has finally caught up to us. Finally, it took a long time, but it finally caught up to us. A lot of these corporations are going to fail because their approach of hands off and we're never responsible for anything, that's catching up to them too. I just got through watching a documentary on Airbnb and how much of a disaster dumpster fire it really is, but they spend a lot of money to make sure you never know that and to make sure you never find out what a dumpster fire it really is. So you can only hide your incompetence for so long. You can only hide your lack of capability for so long. You can only keep lying for so long before it finally catches up to you. And it's catching up. The pandemic helped expose a lot, but even without the pandemic, it still would have caught up to them. Still. So this is the end result of narcs in high places. Tonight's topic in particular was labor and delivery nurses. And then we kind of drifted into an overall conversation of how devastating narcissism reaching the highest places, how devastating that is to society. And basically how countries become third world. They become third world like this. You got narc doctors, narc nurses, narc judges, narc teachers, narc professors, narc CEOs, like just narcs everywhere. And eventually all that narcissism congeals to where you bring your country down and turn it into a third world country. And I don't know where you live, but when I drive around, I'm like, we're already there. Like where I live, like I see tents all the time under overpasses, like little miniature tent cities. And I think it's just so sad. How do we let it get this way? How do we let it get to the point where American citizens are living in tents under overpasses because capitalism and consumerism and greed has taken over in such a way that the last place they could live was under the overpass in a tent? That is sad. That's sad. But it's a sign of what's to come. You're already third world, honey. Mental health problems are at an all-time high. People can't get the health care that they need. You're already third world. You should be ashamed of yourself. But you're not. You're proud. Which is funny. Now I see why pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. Let me check the survey, then I'm going to close the survey. So the question was, what was your labor and delivery like? 46% of you had a smooth and easy labor and delivery. 30% of you had a few complications but successful, and 24% of you experienced a nightmare. So thank you to everyone who took the survey. I am going to go ahead and close it now. And I'm going to spend just a few minutes going through some of, oh, they put it in the chat. Yay. They put a summary in the chat. Wonderful. Can y'all see that? I hope so. Look at that. Little features like that. Thank you, YouTube. It's little stuff like that that makes it so much better. Not turning the like button a whole bunch of different colors when you hit it. Have y'all noticed that? When you hit like on a video now, it like explodes and turns like red and blue and green and yellow. It's like, how much work went into that? When there's so many other features that we really need on this platform, y'all spent good time and money to make the like button light up. Like, stop. You see what I mean? That's what I mean, though. That's what you found important to invest your effort and energy in, making the like button light up. I think it's only on mobile, though. But whatever. I'm not here to talk about YouTube. All right. Let me go through some of your comments, then we'll get out of here. Thank you to everyone who's here tonight. I appreciate you guys. So let's see what we have. Let's see. We had a couple people, labor and delivery went well. Let's see. It says, hi PTE, so glad you're talking about this. Very important topic to discuss. Uh-oh, looks like somebody got the wrong baby. It says, I just fed the baby and she was rude, saying it was time again. The baby was fussy and wouldn't latch. I checked the diaper and it wasn't my baby. The nurse came back and took the baby without a word. That mistake was not made again. Oh my God. How scary. How scary. Ooh, okay. It said it's 10 centimeters because 10 inches is like $2 bills end to end. Okay, yeah. Definitely don't want to be dilating to 10 inches. Man, 10 centimeters is so small though. Oh my God. Unbelievable what the body can do. Let's see. It says it's not just labor and delivery doctors and nurses. It's all the medical people nowadays. Here, let me display these comments. Can I? Oh, I can't because it won't let me display them. Can I do it like this? Nope. I'm using a different software tonight, so y'all just bear with me. It says, I was young when I had my son. The nurse was awful and antagonized me the whole time. She was commenting about how big I was when giving the epidural, which she eventually took away. What a jerk. What a nightmare. Let me see here. I'm gonna read it anyway. It says, we were talking about the pressure, the feeling of pressure. It says, yes, it's like a huge flush or a fart when I guess feeling the need to push. Man. Wow. I've heard stories of women who basically Like they feel something and then all of a sudden, like they just stand up and boom, there's the baby. Baby just comes right on out. I've seen videos like that. A lady was walking around in the grocery store. Her water broke and then the baby came out in her sweatpants. In her sweatpants. It's on video. It says Nurse Ratchet. It says a lot of nurses are crazy as hell and extremely codependent. Why is that though? What makes them that way? Is it the profession that makes them that way? Or were they already that way to begin with? I'm asking a serious question. Did the profession make them crazy, or were they already crazy to begin with, which made them pursue that profession? Like why does that profession attract so many narcs? It says definitely the arrogance in the medical field is so sad. It says when I was 17 when I gave birth, I was terrified and screaming. The doctor hit me and yelled at me and said, "What are you screaming for?" I was too young to know that I could have sued him. Wow. Chat says the doctor was turned around when the baby finally came. They had to tell him, "Get the baby." The nurse commented how wide my son's feet were and that he was going to be a big boy. She enjoyed me being in pain. They sound very, very sadistic. Am I getting that right? Is it sadistic or masochistic? I probably shouldn't say either one of those words for the algorithm. Damn. Oh well, they've been said. It's the word that means enjoy inflicting pain on others or enjoy seeing people in pain. Chat says, I gave birth in the UK and it was a completely different experience than if I gave birth stateside. Wow. Chat says, I remember my younger son, I pushed twice, he popped out, didn't cry a bit. I said, I guess I could do this again. My son didn't cry until he was circumcised, and I knew immediately it was his cry. Oh, poor baby. That's one of the births that I witnessed. That's exactly what she said. She was like, well, it wasn't so bad. Like that baby just came right out. Right out. So I'll definitely check that out. It says, check out Ricky Lake's The Business of Birthing Babies. It will shock you in a way that will realize how limited your voice is. Chat said, this is why I need a doula. And some insurances do cover that. Yes, if your insurance covers it or you can afford it, get a doula, which from what I understand is someone who helps you and assists you through the childbirth process. And aren't they there with you pretty much the entire time? Scrolling your comments. Says, yes, and I believe I've heard that the mortality rate for Black women in childbirth is about 3 times higher than white women. That is so sad. And it probably has a lot to do with that long-standing stereotype that, you know, Black women are made of steel and we can just take anything, you know? We can take all manner of abuse because we're just made of something different than other people. When in reality, we might actually be more sensitive than other people. That's a totally different show though. But I have some theories around that. But for example, like I think our stomachs might be more sensitive than other people. But that just a theory, not saying it's fact, just something that I think about sometimes. It says, PTE, you have the most endearing laugh and snicker. Thank you. Y'all should hear the full tilt one, like when I'm laughing at Max. I think some of you have heard it before. I think I've only let it out once or twice before because it is so loud. So loud. It's so loud, but it's so funny and it makes me laugh. But I try to contain it. So my snicker is really me containing the big laugh. But typically the big laugh sneaks up on me and I have no control over it. But y'all should hear that one. That one's something else. Let's see. Everybody check out the book, Medical Apartheid. I certainly will. Chat says, every time I've been to the hospital, they make it worse. I'm not going either. I don't know if I blame you. I don't know that I blame you. Oh my goodness. Chat says, a woman told me that when women give birth, women have 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot on the ground. Wow. I think I've heard something similar to where they say when you're giving birth, it's the closest thing to death you'll ever experience. It's the closest you'll come to death that you'll ever experience, which is just wow. Chat says, my brother is married to a narc nurse. Says PTE, do narcs and the law, lawyers and judges are the worst. Absolutely. And I think part of the problem, especially with the narcs in high places, is they've earned, well, I put earned in quotation marks because I just learned about degree farms. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of degree farms. I don't know if I'm using the right term. But basically, they're places where you pay like $5,000 and they just send you a degree with whatever major, and some places will even send transcripts along with it. Degree farms, I think is what they're called. So now that I know of the existence of degree farms, a lot of people put so much weight on doctors, nurses, lawyers, judges. And I'm not saying that they all are like this. A lot of them have absolutely earned where they are, but a lot of people have not. A lot of people paid other people to do their work for them. Some people just went through degree farms. And the people who are doing the hiring are no better because they love to ask the most ridiculous questions in interviews that really have nothing to do with that person's competence or ability to do the job. But they ask the questions anyway, and if you give a good enough answer, they'll hire you. But most common people don't know that. They see doctor or lawyer or nurse in front of someone's name or behind it, and they automatically assign them credibility and trust. And that's how these people are able to kind of snake through and escape detection because nobody questions them because of the titles that they've earned. And I think we learned that a lot over the past couple of years, where when you go to try to have a normal conversation with someone regarding an issue that affected the whole entire world, typically the way they cop out of that conversation is they say, well, are you a doctor? And you say, well, no, but I've read, and they're like, reading. They're like, well, you're not a doctor, so I'm not going to listen to you. It's like, you don't even want to hear my argument, though? It's like, no, you're not a doctor. Okay. Then keep on keeping on, baby. Keep it up. Go for number 5, 6, and 7. Keep it up. Let me hush. Wrong channel, wrong platform. Let's see here. Chat says, you remember the experience of birthing, but not the pain. It's an old adage. If you forget the labor pain, you'll have more kids. Says, yep, and America just happens to be where they're currently trying to force births. Yep, forced birth, but no forced health care. Well, there's kind of sort of forced health care, but what I mean is no health care readily available and accessible to all citizens like other civilized nations. Says, after living abroad and giving birth abroad, the U.S. doesn't do much postpartum services. Sad. Female health care isn't as important as non-female health services. Sure isn't. Says, American women aren't allowed to take time off of work to care for their children or families, especially if they don't have insurance. Exactly. And then the same people will turn around and complain about the destruction of the nuclear family. Well, honey, how do you think it got destroyed? They'll say feminism, but they never want to talk about the fact that shortly after birth, most parents have to go back to work. They don't have time off, written into law to protect mothers and fathers of new babies. And that only certain companies offer it as like a perk. Like, hey, we have maternity leave, and some companies even offer paternity leave for the dads, but it's a perk. It's not standard practice. So are you really surprised the nuclear family has collapsed when mom and dad have to go back to work to keep the roof over their head so they don't end up in a tent under an overpass? This place is doomed, man. And your delusion has led you here. And part of me believes that the rest of the world has almost played like a form of reverse psychology on America by basically gassing America's head up, making them think that they were number one indeed. Meanwhile, these other countries were becoming number one, but they kept telling America, you're number one. So America thought they didn't have anything to do. They thought they didn't have anything to do. They thought they didn't have anything to fix. They thought they didn't have anything to improve. So they just sat back on their laurels, got rich, got fat, and meanwhile, your whole society is crumbling, literally crumbling around you. But you think you're number one. Meanwhile, other countries were busy becoming number one, and it won't be long before they just cut us off and leave us to our own devices. It says, I love that analogy, penthouse in hell. Absolutely. America is the penthouse of hell. So you think you're doing something because you got the top floor, but you got the top floor in hell, honey. So are you really doing something? Chat says America is the most narcissistic. Narcs always say that they're the greatest, always, and they believe it too. And as a result of believing they are the greatest, they don't think they have anything to fix. I remember I was talking to a business owner one time. I think it was of a moving company. I don't remember, but they had done a really good job. And I told their boss that. I was like, they did a great job. You know, do you ever compliment them and let them know they're doing well? And he said no, because then they won't work as hard. And I laughed. And at the time I was thinking, dang, that's kind of messed up. So they probably never get compliments. They never get pats on the back, you know. But now that I think about it, maybe he was on to something. Because if he had started telling them, y'all are great, like y'all are really good at what you do, they might have gotten lazy. I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do. You should encourage people always, but he might have been on to something. He said, no, I don't tell them they're doing a good job. Then they'll get lazy. I'm like, what? That's so messed up. He might have been on to something though. Might have been on to something. Chat says, and you haven't even covered that one of the leading causes of death in the USA is due to medical error. Absolutely. Then it says at least $250,000 a year. I think you were talking about malpractice insurance. Yep. That's sad. But how could people not make errors when, number one, you have all these narcs in high places, but number two, from what I understand, they are always changing like the processes and procedures. They're always like adopting some new technology. They'll get a new patient technology one year, make everybody train on it in terms of like how to enter in information, enter your notes in here, you know, any records, any x-rays, you know, upload it to this little app. And they get everyone all trained on that. Then the next year they buy a different software. So forget the old one and learn this new one. And you know what I mean? Like it's changing every single year. It's always changing. Always. Like they don't know how to sit still and calm down and stick with something for a few years. And then if you need to change it. But like they're constantly changing systems, constantly trying to keep up with this tech revolution. Says the Josh Powell 911 dispatcher sickens me. If he had dispatched emergency staff, those two little boys might still be here. That dispatcher needs to lose their job and go to jail. That sounds so familiar to me. That sounds really, really, really familiar. I feel like I know what you're talking about, but then again, maybe not. I might be getting it confused with someone else. And any of you who watch like true crime shows, my God, like all the time on these true crime shows, they'll play the 911 call. And the dispatcher is just so freaking rude, man. Just being rude to somebody in crisis, as if it's their fault that they're in crisis. They're going to get enough of that, though. I'm going to find that. Let me see if I can just figure that out real quick. 911 dispatcher. Hold on, I got to spell first. Dispatcher charged with manslaughter. Let me see here. Yeah, this is recent. 911 dispatcher charged with involuntary manslaughter after allegedly refusing to send an ambulance to help a woman. I knew I had heard about this. It says 2 years after a 911 dispatcher in rural Pennsylvania refused to send emergency medical assistance to an ailing woman, he was charged with involuntary manslaughter according to court records. And this was published on July 13th, 2022. Dispatcher Leon Price was also charged with recklessly endangering another person, official oppression, and obstruction of the administration of law or other government function related to the July 2020 incident. And what did he say? Let me see if they put... So basically what happened was... Okay, so the daughter called and said that her mother needed to go to the hospital because she was turning yellow, making noises, and had been lying in the bed for days. Then it says she told the dispatcher she's going to die if she doesn't go to the hospital. And then the dispatcher told the daughter that her mother might refuse to go with emergency personnel, and he instructed her that before an ambulance could be dispatched, she would need to call back from her mother's house and confirm that she wouldn't refuse services. So basically, the daughter wasn't at the mom's house. The daughter was calling on behalf of the mother, and the dispatcher refused to send the ambulance because he was worried that the mom would refuse services. So he told the daughter to go to the mother's house and call back to confirm that she wouldn't refuse services. What an idiot. Like, what an idiot. What an idiot. So he got charged, and there might be another one too. Let me see if there's another one, or if that's in my imagination. No, it must be, that must have been him. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. What an absolute idiot. Chat says, I've told nurses something is wrong and they ignore me, only for them to tell me I should have listened. Nurses can be scary narcissists. Yeah, absolutely. Chat says, my labor and delivery went physically smooth, but the nurses and doctors were very difficult to deal with. They have God complexes and hate when you ask questions. Ooh. When you start asking those questions, that's what does it. That's what does it. You cannot question them. You cannot question narcissists, period. They don't like that. So my advice, if I could give you any advice, is to avoid anyone who refuses to answer your honest questions. Because that either means they don't know, or they do know and they're afraid that if you keep asking questions, you're going to get to the truth. That's part of the reason I wanted to be an attorney in my life, and might do that when I turn like 50, go to school, become an attorney, because I just know I could just pull the truth out of these people on the stand or wherever by virtue of the questions that I ask them. Just keep asking them questions until they crack. Chat says, America is a sinking ship and it is sinking fast. It really is. And it's so sad. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, wow, what if we are literally living through and witnessing the end of an empire? Like, what if we're living through the end of the American empire? This is what it looks like. This is what a society looks like as it starts to crumble and fall apart. Let's see. Just going through your comments here. Chat says the nurses that treated Serena Williams come to mind. She had to demand an MRI. I remember that. I don't remember every detail, but didn't she have a blood clot? and she kept going back and they kept telling her like she was fine or something like that. She finally had to demand an MRI, and that's when they found it, something like that. And that's Serena Williams. So if that's happening to Serena, God only knows what's happening to other women or other people, period, out here in the world. It's so scary. Like, what happened? I know what happened. We devalued education, and largely nobody really knows how to teach anymore, you guys. And even if they did, they don't have the tolerance for it, because teaching really requires like a stair stepping. And I don't mean the educational term stair step. What I mean is you have to like build on knowledge. First, you provide the basics. Then you go to the next level that includes the basics. Then you go to the next level that included the basics and the first level. Then you go to the next level that has the basics, the first level, and the second level. It requires a stair stepping. And most people just simply don't have the tolerance for it, nor the patience for it. And this is the end result. Nobody really knows how to teach, and they don't have the patience for true teaching anymore. And a lot of people are just flat out stupid. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to keep it real with you. A lot of people are actually literally dumb. So they can't think. They can't. Don't get me started on that, y'all. Don't get me started on that. All right. So I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. I'm kind of reaching the end of the comment thread, and I appreciate all of your comments. And as you all know, I will go back and read them all. I'm going to try not to accidentally disappear the live chat this time. I didn't think muting a song would cause the live chat to disappear. It's just so stupid. YouTube, fix that, please. I do have it though, a recording of it, and I think I might upload that last episode we did called Introvert Shaming. I think I'm going to upload that to Odyssey, and the live chat will be on there for anyone interested. But I'm starting to think I'm the only one who really cares about the live chat. And that's fine. That's fine. But I still want it to be available because those comments were really, 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 really good from that last show, and I hated that they disappeared. So the live chat should remain for this episode. I don't think I'll disappear it by mistake. So I will be rewatching this tonight. And once the live chat is available, rewatching it and watching your comments as well, so I can get all of them. I appreciate you guys. If I could give you any advice, it's to always be your number one advocate in all things. All things. Don't let anyone talk you out of your health. Don't let anyone talk you out of your instinct. If you know something is wrong and you can see that you're not being heard, to the best of your ability, go get a second opinion if you're able. I know if you're in the middle of labor, you can't exactly pack up and leave and go to another hospital. I mean, you can, but you can't, especially if you had an epidural. So be careful and do all that you can to advocate for yourself. Do not assume that these people are competent. As a matter of fact, you should probably assume that they're incompetent. You'll be safer that way. Then, if they turn out to be competent, you'll be pleasantly surprised. But I think you should always plan for the possibility that you're going to be dealing with an incompetent group of people. Plan for that possibility and protect yourself. Be your number one advocate and trust your gut, trust your instincts. If you feel like you're being mistreated, unheard, not taken seriously, trust that. Trust that. If you feel a pain that you know just isn't right, trust that, and don't stop banging on the door until somebody listens to you, because we're entering a time frame where only you will be able to save your own life. And I mean that. Short of some emergency surgery, only you will be able to save your own life with the time frame that we're entering into, because the world is gone, honey. Everybody's gone mentally. I'm so serious. I wish I could tell you how serious I was. These folks are gone. Or as we say in the South, these folks are shot out. They're shot out, okay? And I think as a collective society, we're all tired in general. I think society is burned out, period. But when you take a burned out society and mix that with a bunch of people whose brains are shot out, you're in danger. It ain't safe. All right? It ain't safe out here in these streets. I'm trying to tell you what I know. Okay? So be there for yourself, support your friends and family, visit your friends and family who might be in the hospital or in some sort of long-term care. Check on them and make sure that they're okay. And don't be afraid to ask those questions, and make sure they're not in the care, custody, and control of narc psychopaths in high places, all right? And let's look out for each other. And most important, make sure you look out for yourself. So you don't have to go out at the hands of some damn narcissist. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got to go out, let it be on your own terms, or let it be because some freak accident happened. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like a satellite crashes back to Earth or something. Not because you went to a hospital and they took such poor care of you, you died. Like, I just don't like that kind of stuff. Like, who wants to go out at the hands of an idiotic narc? You know what I mean? Let it be natural. Let it be natural. And with that, I'm going to close the show. I appreciate every single one of you. Can't wait to read your comments. And we will get back together again very, very, very soon. Bye.